This is a used head. I believe I mentioned already from the salvage yard. It's pretty much an own good head from what we could gather. As you can see, I started removing the valves. I'm doing this to replace the valve seals along with relapping the valves. You don't have to necessarily do this on every used head you buy. I just do it as a precaution, that way it has all new seals in it. This is a valve spring compressor. This pretty much goes around the head and it collapses that spring. As you can see, this one's a little more difficult because it's recessed in. Therefore, we had to fabricate a special tool that will go down in there and allow me to reach in through to grab or to pull out the keepers. For those of you who don't know what keepers are, and if I'm getting you confused how that works, let me see if I can give you a quick example. This is your exhaust valve. Comes in through the back. These are your valve seats. So you push it in. Goes through your valve guide. I'm not sure if you can see it now. I'll move it down one. There's a seal inside there. That seals the shaft, the valve guide, that prevents oil from going down into the combustion chamber. That's the main reason I'm doing this, but I'm going to relap them while I have it apart. Here's the valve spring, and this is the upper retainer. As you can see, it's a taper. Pop this back out for a second. And in between the valve spring, the spring has a seat, so there's about that much material in between the valve and the seat. So the spring, simply, this is going to be seated against its valve seat, and the spring's going to come behind, and you're going to have to compress it the rest of the way because the spring's going to be on the seat. And once you compress it, you got what they call keepers. These keepers are tapered as well. They go into these grooves, and as you can see, it has that taper, and the cup, the valve spring retainer has a taper in it as well. So with the two opposite tapers, once you release it, it'll come up and lock in and create what they call a taper lock. And then it's simply retained in place that way. So I'm in the process of removing them. As we speak. Okay. I know it's going to be hard for you to see, but now that I have it compressed, you can see I can pull them keepers out. Right, go on. True. Okay, now I can release this. Oop, there's the dominoes. I got everything sitting in order, so I put them all back in the same manner. Okay, once you have the keepers removed, you simply remove the valve spring and the retainer. And remove the valve. Okay, I'm going to do that to the rest of them, and I'll be back. Yeah, it's all of them. There's 20 of them all together. There's 10 exhaust and 10 intake. These valve seals could be a real pain. I'm just using a pair of long needle nose. Just wiggle and get them moving. And just like so. It's like once you get them moving, man, they come right out. Okay, now I got the valve seals all removed. Underneath the valve seals, where the spring pushes to the cylinder head, is a shim, because you wouldn't want this spring pushing against aluminum. And plus, I use a certain thickness shim to get everything in specs. So we're going to take one and remove these shims. I'm only removing them because I got to clean the cylinder head. Pretty much they're just, that's what the spring pushes against. I like keeping everything in order. That way I put it back in the same manner. All these parts spend a lot of time together, so if you put them back in their original locations, I tend to have better luck that way. Okay. Okay, as you can see, I'm over here at the bench. I got the cylinder head all cleaned up. Valves I cleaned on a wire wheel. I got all the exhaust valves relapped, reseated. I don't have the valve springs in, nor the valve seals. Working on the intake side, getting them relapped. I'm on the last cylinder. I started from cylinder number 5, so it's actually cylinder number 1. I got the 2 remaining valves left to do. I figured I'd give you a quick example how I go about lapping the valves. Like I said in the previous video, I like to make a video just dedicated on redoing a head, because time just don't allow it on this job. However, I'll give you a quick example in case you need it on how to relap the valves. Okay, hopefully this shows up on the video. I just wanted to give you an example of one of the valve seats I already seated. If you look here, this is cylinder number 2. If you take notice how it's dark down in here, it's dark up above, but in the middle perimeter it's that dull, like grayish finish with no pits. I got a little pit right there, but for the most part it's uniform all the way around. Same thing with this valve. Okay, now let's look at cylinder number 1 that I haven't done yet. Now as you can see, it's dull, it's got a lot of pits in it. It's about the same color as down below. Same thing with this side. You take notice around the middle perimeter of the valve seat on the valve as well. It's a uniform finish all the way around. Okay? Now let me show you one that I didn't lap, which would be over here. As you can see, it's all the same finish. Okay, you're going to start with what they call valve grinding compound. It's a real abrasive compound, and you put a little dab around the perimeter. It doesn't take much. Now you simply reinstall the valve. Now you're not going to reinstall valve springs or anything at this point. Now this is a suction cup, and it's pretty much made for lapping valves. I have a bigger one, however the suction cup got dry rotted, I don't use it too often, as much as I used to. So this is actually a smaller set, but it's working for the most part. So let me try to give you a quick demonstration. He's taking apply the suction cup, taking just give it a couple laps around, that way the valve grinding compound spreads out even. And you notice how you can hear that grinding? And this suction cup's giving me a hard time. Ever notice how you can hear that gritty grinding? Well, you pretty much want to lap the valve until that noise goes away. You hear how it's getting smoother? And you just take it and you give it a couple taps. Get some fresh compound down in there. As you can hear, that compound's pretty well spent. So we're going to take and remove the valve. And let's take a look at it. You're going to want to clean this off real good because this abrasive compound, you don't want it left in the cylinder head anywhere. It's not good for the bearings. It'll actually destroy an engine if you leave compound in it. I'll thoroughly clean it one more time. So let's take a look at what we got. Okay, now as you can see, you got that nice uniform lap around that middle perimeter. Now you can see the dark portion, the part we just lapped, the contact surface for the valve, and your upper portion. So it's just that middle perimeter where this valve seats. Now if you take a look at the valve that we just lapped, you can see it as well. It's a nice uniform finish all the way around. That's what we want to see. It took out all those pits and now give it a nice fresh seat. So it doesn't take much, guys. These seats weren't in that bad a condition, so it only took one round with the compound. However, sometimes you might have to do it a couple times to achieve this. However, as you can see with the before and after, this really does wonders. Okay, here's one more shot before. If you come to a valve that has deep pits that you can't lap out, then you're going to have to either regrind them or replace them. And the same thing with the seats. These seats are pressed in. It's an aluminum head with steel seats. There you go. And that's how I go about lapping them. As you can see, I got most of the valves reinstalled. This is the exhaust side. I left two valves out to demonstrate for you guys. We'll be reinstalling the valve seals on the valve guides. These valve guides are in good shape, so I didn't have to replace them. So we got to install the shims prior to putting the seals on. I'll show you why. Okay, these here are the valve spring shims. They go down first. The reason why is if you put the valve seal on first, you won't be able to get the shim back over top of it. So I'll take and drop them in place. What I do, I take a little Vaseline, put it on the tip of my finger. I put these on dry. Another trick you could do is use some soapy water to put them on, and then the water will evaporate. And I just do this to have them stick to my fingers. I'm going to put this one on first. Okay, and then 11mm socket fits on there perfect. Get a couple of tap. See, I'm not putting any oil or anything on the inner perimeter because I don't want to take a chance of it coming off. So I put it on dry. This is just to hold it on my finger as I put it down in a hole since it's recessed. Okay, let me try to give you a better shot of this one going in. I'm going to come around here. You see, she seed it down in there. Okay, it's all the way on. Okay, now I'm going to take and install the valve. Put a little Vaseline or lube on the valve stem. This will help prevent you from nicking the seal. Okay. And the Vaseline is also acting as a pre-lube. Now we're going to take and reinstall the valve spring. Take and install the keepers. Okay. Alright, that's all there is to it. Now let's hope it runs as good as it looks. I coat the gasket and the block surface, running a pressure test on it. I had it at 10 pounds earlier. I just lowered it down to around 5.